Should be purple.
Why? What color do you think it was going to be?
It should be purple, Endo.
Fuck you. It should have been purple.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Tougies Take podcast. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well. This is your number one hockey podcast in order to get takes on what the proper flavor / color of Kool-Aid is. You already know Sin's number one. Gotta get that grape Kool-Aid. Is that your number one? Grape Kool-Aid. Discuss.
It's not grape. It's purple Kool-Aid because it doesn't taste like grape. It tastes like purple.
You're not wrong.
It's real good, though. Yes, that would be my favorite Kool-Aid. The rare times I actually have Kool-Aid. Yeah, I like a lot of like the grape flavored stuff. Man, I used to love Dimetap as a kid. You know that medicine, Dimetap? No, I can probably not. Anyway, that shit was bomb because it tasted like that grape shit.
Which is probably why they stopped making it so kids wouldn't drink it or take it like it was Kool-Aid.
Yeah, they're trying to get me hooked on pharmaceuticals early on, man. They almost had me. And then high school came along and showed me the power of marijuana.
So we're back for another edition of the podcast, and is obviously here. Endo Mills is here as well, and today we'll begin our little season previews. Now, we're not going back to 2 a week as we discovered. The fact that it's the end of September has clearly messed with my head. And we don't have to go back to 2 a week yet. So this week, we're going to be covering the Atlantic and Pacific divisions. Next week, of course, will be the alternative side of that with the Metro and Central. And then the week of October 10th, 14th, around that time, that week, we will be back to 2 a week because the NHL season will be back in full force. So excited for that. Endo, thumbs up, thumbs down on the Kool-Aid. How's it going for you?
I'm good. I'm still laughing about stuff that happened last night in the Twitch chat. We won't get really into it, but just know that FIFA Pro Clubs is back, and that's all you need to know. We have some wild conversations at 4 a.m. and I can't stop thinking about it. Like it's devolved into like
Go ahead.
it's devolved into like this morning. Everyone's like, "What the fuck happened last night?" And now the entirety of like your Discord is just like talking about it. Like it's taken over the chat completely.
Twitch.tv/Tougie24. FIFA is out. Career mode, pro clubs content, biding time for NHL 23. And if NHL 23 disappoints, the return of NHL 2K10, which will likely happen by the end of the year.
Yeah.
No matter what, especially with how excited Sin is for that. For those of you watching on the YouTube side of things, you might notice Sin rocking a particular jersey that's rather relevant from the NHL 2K10 run we had with the Ottawa Senators this past summer.
Yeah.
Good times. Good times. Definitely.
Very good.
So, a lot of stuff going on that front, but we do have a lot to talk about today, so we'll get down to business. We'll mention, as always, this podcast brought to you by our friends at Manscaped. You can use code Tougie at checkout for 20% off your order and free shipping. Again, that's code Tougie, Tougie, at checkout, manscaped.com. Get the best tools for the job. Doesn't matter what you're looking to take care of in terms of male grooming in general. Let's be honest. The products, they're not just exclusive. No matter who you are, Manscaped, best place to be. Circular deodorant.
Spray.
And spray.
Clean yourself.
Split
there you go.
The defense.
Oh my god.
We'll get things started off today with a viewer question. Again, the link to the Discord is in the description, whether or not you're listening to this podcast or watching us on YouTube. Join the Discord, go to the viewer questions section, the podcast questions section, like Scroopy Doopers did. Question for the podcast. You get to add 5 celebrities to your group of close friends. An athlete, a musician, a comedian, an actor, and a miscellaneous celebrity for your 5th pick. It doesn't matter if the actor or comedian are interchangeable. You still get to pick 2. Who would you pick to join your entourage? So, gentlemen, let's start this off. You get to pick one athlete to join your close group of friends. Who is that athlete?
Tomas Hertl.
That's fair.
As the most positive human being on the planet. Like, obviously.
I was gonna say Patrice Bergeron, just because he would make me an even nicer human being.
Yeah, and it'd be like having 2 dads because he's an absolute dad. But yeah.
Sorry, Dad, I got a new dad. His name's Patrice. And my dad would be like, son, that's fair.
Patrice O'Neill, hell yeah. No.
Oh, God, I wish. God, I miss that man.
He's a good
Endo Mills, who would you pick as a dad athlete? A dadlete.
Dad fleet.
And
why would it be Fred Van Fleet?
I have no idea. I don't know. I mean, I'm wearing a PK Subban shirt, but that'd be weird.
Why would it be weird?
I don't know.
Who wouldn't want to be friends with PK Subban?
I told you, he's like the uncle. He'd be like my uncle. He's the weird uncle at every get together, like that one part of the family. So why maybe you know what? Fuck it. You know what? Fuck it. PK Subban. Why not? Yeah, I'm a homer for PK apparently.
That's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, he's a good dude.
Yeah.
A musician to join your entourage.
PK
Close friends. PK Subban.
Just all my answers are PK.
Mika Zibanejad. I mean, it's true. He makes music. God, I don't know. So many musicians are problematic, aren't they? I don't know. Anybody got an answer for this one? A musician you want to be friends with?
Yeah, I'm like trying to think on it. That's really kind of tough off the block, especially for
Post
me.
Malone.
There you go. Here, yeah, please.
That dude that dude is literally just as if like a weeb, like got famous and became a rapper. That's basically it. Have you seen the early pictures of Post Malone? It's him like with like a bunch of like brony stuff, wearing a fucking Tilby, not neck bearded all out, like having a sword, and like he's the biggest like he grew out of that, obviously, like clearly.
Did he though? Or does he just
probably not. But like the dude just cracks like fucking beer bongs out and fucking Bentleys, sitting around doing whatever the fuck he wants.
I think he just said the
dude's
lyrics
like,
to Rockstar.
The dude said, I hate hip hop, but it makes me money. I want to do rock stuff instead. But he doesn't even care. Like he's like the biggest fuck you artist out there right now, I think.
So to decide this, I started scrolling through a Spotify playlist of mine and looked for like the first band. I'll Davey Havoc of AFI. Screw it.
Oh!
Why not?
Sorry.
Well done. So Sin, who's your choice?
Chadwick Stokes. That no one knows of. He's the singer of Dispatch. And one of the main songwriters. He's a very cool dude. Does a lot of work for charity, a lot of stuff like that, and it obviously it's really fucking adventurous. Anyway, I was like, he'd be cool to chill with. He's always jumping off bridges and shit. It's awesome. I'm just kidding. I saw a video of them like jumping off a bridge into a lake when they were on tour. So
your parents would be so disappointed.
Yeah, they're fucking metaphor of the God, every time. If so and so asked you to do this, would you do this?
Apparently you would. A famous comedian. If you could be close friends with a famous comedian. Another tough one.
Yeah.
Another tough one.
Sorry. Nothing. It's a anti-answer. I was just gonna be like Chris D'Elia.
Dane Cook.
Oh my god.
Oh, you know what? Fuck, this is tough. Like, did it have to be near my age?
Joey Diaz.
Joey Diaz.
Bam!
Bam! Bam!
Look at him. I'm gonna go with Jim Jeffries for the Australian accent.
That's fair.
That's a good choice.
Spice it up a little bit because I have nothing but nice people so far. And you got to spice it up there a little bit with a little bit of controversy.
I think I'd go Bill Burr. Just because you need someone who you can just roast back and forth with all day. And Bill Burr's
getting
the
to
guy
talk
who can
about
do
the
that.
Bruins with Bill Burr, though, would be pretty fucking sweet.
That would be pretty.
Oh
Yeah,
my
especially
God.
because I was like, well, I'm kind of surprised you didn't pick him because the whole East Coast Boston thing.
Yeah, I think I'm changing my answer. I think you got me.
There you go.
All right, I'll change mine to Bo Burnham then.
There you go. That's a good one. Be sad boys together.
Yeah, but write music together too.
There you go. Endo, pick a comedian.
I did. Joey Diaz.
Fair enough. I said pick a comedian.
Upburn.
Oh,
man.
an actor to join your entourage of close friends. God, I don't fucking. Brendan Fraser.
Edward Norton. But yeah,
And
Brendan
Brenda.
Fraser's a good one.
Endo's thinking. He's got nothing.
Sorry, Ryan Reynolds, just because they announced apparently him and Hugh Jackman are apparently doing another movie together.
Where they just have their shirts off the entire time.
No, like the Deadpool movie, like the new one's coming out, has Wolverine in it.
Okay, well, they had to do that after the first two.
Yeah, they just announced it maybe like half an hour ago.
Oh, sick. I had no idea. That's awesome. And
It
the
was
final
like,
one.
there's-
Go ahead. Unless you got more to add about it.
He's just sitting on a couch and he's just like, man, I really had to like bring out the stop for the next Deadpool movie. And then you just see Hugh Jackman in the background. It's like, hey, Hugh, you want to do Wolverine one more time? He's like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then you hear, I will always love you in the background.
Oh, yeah, look at that. IGN. September 6th, 2024. 2 years away, eh?
Yeah, now I have something to live for.
A miscellaneous celebrity to join your close group of friends. I just
I'm
like
so
the
torn on
term
it.
miscellaneous celebrity.
So do I. I know it's like that can mean. I guess it's just a spare one, one that we couldn't fit in the other categories.
Jack Edwards.
That's a good one. I hate it, but
Jack
it's a good one. God, dude, you, Jack Edwards, and Bill Burr, it's just gonna be loud. It's just gonna be loud.
It's that friend group is the incarnation of the Bruins guy.
Yeah.
Sings the song.
Bruins!
Yeah.
Bruins!
Oh, fuck.
God, I want this to happen now.
It's like, God,
Holy,
I don't know what you're talking about, Jack.
holy shit. Like, I just get to be there while
You
those two go
yap
back
like
and-
a girl on the playground.
I just want to put
boy,
Kanye
you guys
West
got
in
anything
there
that could
for
top
me.
that?
Man, it's I'm torn. I guess I would have to go with Eric Andre, but I also want to say pre addiction and meltdown Bam Margera.
Interesting one. So you're
Yeah.
talking like 2000
10-year-old Bam Margera.
Yeah, like Viva La Bam era Bam Margera.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That'd be.
But if not, Eric Andre for sure.
So you just get to sit there and slap Phil all day with no repercussions.
They're always doing crazy shit, like with just like, yeah. Let's just
randomly go to.
It's just
super
funny as shit,
northern
like
Finland.
observing that. Yeah. I'm just like, all right, what we're gonna do now is gonna make this haggard ass ramp in my backyard, and then there's Rab just sitting there with a shit-eating grin on his face. He's so crazy, man. Like,
I forgot about the Bam impression. That's fucking spot on too. Oh my god. Endo, you got anything to add, or you want to actually just talk about hockey now?
I was gonna say Kanye West, but then like you said, fucking just because the group chat would be insane. Like, have you seen his leaked DMs and stuff like that?
No, but you could be friends with Drake and attack music critics on YouTube.
That was so funny. He
Just
went
rate
after
Anthony
fucking
Fantano's
Fantano.
life a light to mid 1.
Anthony Fantano. Oh my god.
Oh yeah,
someone
dude.
out
Drake
there?
went after Anthony Fantano in Instagram DMs.
Sorry, it just reminds me of Brian Fantana. That was, but that's hilarious. Did he like have a burner and go after him, or legit with?
No,
his
it was
own
his actual
He didn't
account.
even use a
What a
burner.
fucking moron,
The best
dude.
part is like he thought he owned him, so he put it on his Instagram story.
So Fantano was like, "Oh, Drake sent me like a fucking vegan pasta recipe," and Drake got so mad at that he actually leaked the DMs where he thought he like owned Fantano, and instead just looks like a salty child.
soy, literal
The
soy.
internet,
That's what's vegan.
It's not
pasta
quite
recipe.
free, but it's worth every goddamn penny.
Yeah, that's what happens when
Oh
you
my
think you're
God.
from the streets, but really you went to Degrassi.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Yeah, he had a silver
All right.
spoon in his mouth the whole time. It's okay. Not
Yeah.
a big deal.
I mean, it's fine. Who doesn't want to pretend that they had a? Who doesn't want to pretend that they struggled more than they actually did? Right. Right.
Yeah. Straight up, like I'm a white dude from the suburbs. We're famous for that shit.
Yeah.
That's my plight in life. Fake plight.
Yeah. You kidding me?
White.
The plight is white, bitch. Anyway.
Every suburban kid who wants to become
Show
a
me
rapper.
imagine trauma.
Fuck, where is it?
Oh, now you got to do your Steve Harvey, Endo. You have to.
Yeah.
Oh my
He's there. It's what it is. This is what it is.
Oh god. Naked grandma.
Nigga, huh? Oh my god, my favorite is what is like name something you want a girl to do to you. Do to your face. Sit on it. Yes! Sit on it! Woo!
Oh,
It's the best moment ever.
So evidently, between the impressions, if we want to go back to Scroopy Nooper's question, you don't need anyone besides me and Endo for all
I
your
know.
celebrity
It's covered.
friends. We'll just
I just got to be a little bit drugged up, and
Impersonate
I
him.
won't know the difference.
Yeah.
Oh my god, this is all of this is in my imagination right now. This isn't real.
This is a fever dream, actually. None of you guys are listening to this.
Wake up from the dream.
Oh shit!
You're in a coma. Fuck hockey. This is it. This is all we're talking about.
This is the podcast at its finest. Let's be honest.
Yeah, honestly, I can't do anything after Endo starts his Godfried shit because it's too good.
I forget what the specific clip was from 2K10, that playthrough where you went like full Gilbert.
Dude,
Sin and I are going full Don Cherry.
There's some
God,
horse
that
in
was
this house. Oh yeah. From the top, make it drop. That's some wet ass pussy.
Oh. Well, everybody, especially Scroopy, I knew we only had time for one question. I had to pick the best one, and yep, it delivered. Thank you as always for the
Oh, yeah.
questions.
we still got hockey to talk about.
Do we? Let's be honest. The real podcast is over. We'll
Yeah.
see you next week. If you want to hang around for an hour while we talk about hockey, you can do that too. That's up to you.
I wonder
but,
what our retention has been in the offseason past like the 30-minute mark.
It's like, all right, I listened to the intro. Everything's fine.
Yeah,
The intro is the highlight.
yeah, fuck.
Holy shit. So we are going to get into talking about 2 of the 4 divisions here on this week's show. We'll cover, like I said, the Metro and the Central next week. Boys, shall we start off in terms of going team by team? I'm going to mention where I think they might finish, or maybe not even necessarily where they'll finish in the standings, but who I think has necessarily like the most well-rounded team, the ones with the least kind of to address in a sense. Shall we start off with the Atlantic Division, or do you want to jump to the Pacific?
Atlantic is fine.
Atlantic it is, the home of Boston and Toronto. It's a beautiful time. So, in terms of the Atlantic Division, I went through and kind of, put together my little rankings there, looking at the teams, how they're set up. And of course, you guys feel free and inevitably will end up disagreeing with me. But out of the 8 teams in the Atlantic, of course, Ottawa, Detroit, Tampa, Toronto, Florida, Boston, Buffalo, Montreal. The team that I have as the worst team in the Atlantic Division this season, at least on paper, the Montreal Canadiens.
Yeah, zero argument. I mean, for a stacked division, even if Montreal would not be bottom, maybe they may. I mean, they're a bubble team at the very, very best anyway in any other division. But yeah, in the Atlantic, they're dead last. No other way around it.
So offensively, I have them towards the lower end. I mean, their projected lines, and again, we should clarify here, this is off of cap friendly. This stuff can change. Training camp and preseason just started. As well, certain players might make the lineup that we didn't necessarily expect. So again, all for fun. Take it with a grain of salt. But Montreal, Caulfield, Suzuki, Hoffman, pretty good. I mean, you'd expect, both Caulfield and Suzuki to keep getting better. Second line projected to be Jonathan Drouin, Christian Dvorak, Josh Anderson. It's okay. Third line, Dadonov, Monahan, Gallagher. It's okay. And then Armia, Evans, and Doc. That's okay. A little bit surprising that Kirby Doc would be on the fourth line after how much they gave up to get him, though, from Chicago. And the problem with this team is in terms of offense, defense, goaltending, their offense is their best attribute. And it's not amazing.
No, it's always been like that. Well, aside from Carey Price being gone and everything. They've always been offense great, defense fucking terrible. And then just relying on their goaltender to bail them out of games. And
they've always had one decent defenseman, like Subban for a while, and Petrie.
Like Subban and Markov at the same time.
Yeah.
I don't know if if it would have been necessarily abysmal, but certainly not the best.
Yeah. It's the same kind of story now. Is when you look at their defense, like Matheson, solid. Savard, I consider middle pairing type guy who can hold his own with some special teams time. But yeah, it's like your two guys.
So those extra 2 pairings, yeah. So it's Corey Schooneman, I believe it is, and Chris Weidman. Chris Weidman, not the MMA fighter.
Is it Dennis Weidman? Not the one that crushed the ref.
No. And then the third pair are 2 very, very young but promising defensemen, Jordan Harris and Justin Barron. But they're just so unproven, right? And you're throwing them into this situation where this team probably isn't going to be that good. Versus, you got to get them time. You never really know how a situation like that's going to play out. And they are missing Joel Edmondson. Who's solid. He's out indefinitely. And then their goaltending, obviously, even with Carey Price, I don't think it would have been the highest rated in the world, but it is Jake Allen and Sam Montembeault, which I have as the second worst tandem in this division.
Who's the worst? Oh, in this division.
We'll get to him next.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, we will.
Yeah. So for Montreal, obviously this season you're not expecting to have a ton of success. The bright spots, the young players in the lineup, hopefully taking the next step forward, and Martin St. Louis getting his first full season with the team. For Montreal, the outlook for the team, for their fans, isn't necessarily, make the playoffs and win. It's a building year. It's a growth year for them. So, them being ranked last in the Atlantic is better than them being ranked higher in the Atlantic at this stage.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing.
You can have a bad team, but make good progress and still get another high draft pick to continue going down the path that you're going.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's all about building blocks. That's what they got to look for in Montreal right now. It's just the little tiny steps that they could take. And yeah, I'll still reiterate Harris, Barron, depending on some things, it could be risky to have them both in a full-time top 6 role, as defensemen. That's tough, but yeah, whatever. If they're ready, they're ready. But in most of our experience in the old adage, defensemen generally take a bit longer to develop. So you better hope that they're ready because you don't want to ruin them because good defensemen are hard to come by.
Are they the most sheltered when your top defenseman right now on this team is Michael Matheson?
Yeah. So, like, I could see a team like Prime LA getting away with that when they had all that defense, like that defensive core that was just so solid and filled with veterans too, like that. Yeah.
And no, anything else to add about Montreal, or we want to move on to the team in 7th?
What's the one thing I want to say about Montreal? They're gonna overhype the crap out of stuff.
Out of what?
It's Montreal way.
Yeah.
I didn't hear who what are they overhyping?
Slavkovsky, or how the fuck you pronounce his name? I'm tired.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like
that's the Canadian way.
They even meet, like, I think back in last week when they had training camp and he had his head down and like he bumped into a guy and they're like, wow, he's so big and tough that like if you go and hit him and his head's down, you'll fly off of him. It's like if he does that in the basic statement usually would be, you know, he does that in the league, he's gonna get killed. You know, with his head down, he's gonna be out and he's gonna get injured. But it seems like they're just flipping that on its head because, oh look, shiny new toy. Seems like Cole Caulfield just kind of went like dropped off the side of a cliff in a way of like they don't really care about him anymore. But like, look, they have this new thing.
Yeah, do you remember how they fucking hyped up Kotkaniemi for years, and then the second he gets traded, they're like, hey, fucking fourth liner, thank you.
Yeah.
For the
Yeah, Slavkovsky's the one where obviously again we don't know if he's going to make the lineup, and I got to be honest, if he is, you can't exactly rate him above a Joel Armia at this stage. Or a Sean Monahan. Like, you don't know what a 18-year-old guy is going to be able to do at the NHL level.
Yeah.
So even if he is in the lineup, he's still an even bigger question mark, similar to the likes of Harris and Barron, as opposed to being more of a guaranteed over some of the veteran players that are there. Yeah. Number 7. This might disappoint some people. The Buffalo Sabers. Now, offensively, I think it's not necessarily tragic, but there's just a lot of still relatively unproven talent. Top line, looking at Skinner, Tage Thompson, Victor Olofsson. Not bad. Second line, Peyton Krebs, Casey Middlestat, Alex Tuck. Not bad, but again, we haven't really seen Krebs at the NHL level. Third line of Asplund, Cousins, Jack Quinn. Again, same for Quinn and Cousins, really, even though Cousins was there all of last year. And then Hinostroza, Gergensons, and Kyle Okposo, who in his role is still very good as like an elite level bottom 6, middle 6 type of option. They don't have a ton of depth either. Like if Quinn, Krebs aren't really getting it done, you have like Anders Bjork and Riley Sheehan to step in. It's probably on paper like the worst offense just because of the question marks from their super young players that they're probably going to try to get into the lineup this year. Their defense, pretty bad as well. I don't have it as the worst defense score. You know, I had Montreal in that spot. You have Samuelson and Rasmus Dahlin, which is okay. Owen Power and Yoki Haru, which again, Power is still completely unproven outside of like a dozen games, less than that last year. And then Jacob Bryson and Ilya Lyubushkin. Like, it's not
that's
brutal.
what Lyubushkin ended up.
Yeah, he randomly ended up in Buffalo.
Yeah, poor guy.
And if someone like Owen Power doesn't work out, they have Casey Fitzgerald, who's okay. So the offense, not great. If not, you can settle on there's a lot of young question marks. The defense, not great. There's some younger question marks. And then there's the goaltending, which I think pretty much everyone can universally agree is the worst on paper in this division. Their 2 starting goaltenders are projected to be Craig Anderson, who has to be older than 99% of the people that'll listen to this podcast, and Eric Comrie. The depth options, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, if he takes the next step forward, or Malcolm Subban.
It's the rise of UPL. He's coming. He's going to do it. He's saving Buffalo.
Like, unless he steps in and plays like a Calder candidate, this team, in my opinion, on paper should not be anywhere near a playoff spot. But as will be a common theme, would it be surprising to see the Buffalo Sabres play above and beyond the sum of their parts? I think they could.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think they could be a better team than they look to be on paper.
Yeah, I would have this team closer to where another team is on this list that I am shocked that they're all the way up here. We'll get to that later. But I would have this team 2 spots ahead. Like, I would have them 6th or 5th in this division. Probably 6th, because 5th could actually be a wild card selection here in the Atlantic, because they're just so strong. So, yeah, I think they're a little bit higher than this. Again, it's a tough division, but I really feel like teams in the Atlantic, maybe like Buffalo, have at times gotten a more raw deal because of the division that they have been in. I do feel like they've taken really good steps, and I feel like they really replaced Jack Eichel tremendously well in the aggregate with the guys that they picked up. And I think they could surprise some people. I don't know. I think Owen Power could just be so, like, I'm talking about like Moritz Seider levels of like the next generation of and like the next prototype defenseman. That's the word I'm looking for. I think him and Mo Seider are the new prototype that every single fucking team's going to want to get their hands on. They're just going to be so valuable, able to put up offense, but tremendous defensively and big enough to have a physical game. Managers jizz their pants over just that last part. Imagine if they got all the other tools, right? So, like, I don't know. He is unproven, but I'd really kind of, and he's going to make some mistakes, but it's just inevitable. I think this team is going to take a huge leap forward this season, and I think they're going to be a bit higher than they're being given credit for on this list.
To avoid being called biased, we'll move to the team who ended up in 6th here through my little formula outcome. The Boston Bruins. Now, there is a reason for this. Let's look at their offense first, which I have kind of middle of the road. Projected lines right now to start the season: Zacha, Bergeron, DeBrusk. Not bad, not amazing. Second line: Hall, Krejci, Pasternak. Pretty good. Pretty damn good for a second line. Third line: Foligno, Coyle, Craig Smith. It's not bad, but Foligno was terrible last year. And then a fourth line of Trent Frederick, Tomas Nosek, Oscar Steen. It's fine, I guess. Here's the problem. Brad Marchand, who is the best forward on this team, is expected out until late November, early December.
Yeah, I was just like, man, if they only had a left winger, that'd be a pretty solid top 9. I'm like, wait a second, someone's missing. Marchand.
He's not the only one. And that is why I have the Bruins down this far. Let's get to their defense. Projected to start the season: Hampus Lindholm, Brandon Carlo. Not bad. First pair? Mike Riley, Connor Clifton. Again, a lot of people debate how good and how effective Mike Riley actually is. And then a third pair of Derek Forbort and Jakub Zaboral.
Hey, Zaboral's finally in the lineup. Let's go.
He actually played pretty well last year, and then he got
No,
injured.
I know. I like to bring up 2015.
Speaking of injured, Charlie McAvoy, not starting the season healthy. He's expected back in December. Matt Grzelcyk, also injured, is listed as month-to-month after a May surgery, is still not expected to be ready for the start of the season. You are missing Brad Marchand, Charlie McAvoy, and Matt Grzelcyk, and will likely not have all three in the lineup fully healthy until sometime in December. This is a team that I think at best scrapes away at a wild card spot, and then you hope that you can do the damage once you're there in the playoffs. But we saw last year how damaging it can be to try to have to overcome, a deficit like that. And some teams just don't make it, and they can't recover. And with this Bruins lineup, man, I get it today. This season, you look at it today and it's like, okay, this was kind of the last hurrah. Bergeron's back, Krejci's back in the lineup. But I can't be overly optimistic. The goaltending's not bad, but you don't have that elite starter yet, at least, between Swayman and Allmark either.
Yeah. Endo, do you have anything? Oh, okay.
No. I'm happy that my team's higher than your team.
They are.
Yeah, the injuries suck, and you're in such a shit situation in the Atlantic where like a slow start can almost completely screw you for the rest of the season, because when those guys get back, the last thing you want everyone to do is push themselves. You're already gonna have to have guys step up well above, you know, their capabilities right now. I mean, Zach on the first line, yikes. Like well above their capabilities right now, just for you to stay afloat. And then everyone's going to have to do that when you get those guys back from injury. And honestly, the last thing you want to do is when people are back from injury is ask them to push and give 120%. And that is likely going to be the situation that Boston's placed in. And yeah, I do not envy that Atlantic division.
Right. Like, think of it this way. They might be fully healthy by the Winter Classic.
Yeah.
That's a scary, scary thought in terms of a team who's clearly built with the sole intention of making the playoffs and making one more run.
It's essentially till December. I mean, that's a full month and a half. If they come back early December, that's a full month and a half of season, which is essentially a quarter of the season, I would say, games wise. Though usually, I don't know. That's a lot of games, man. I just remember watching the Sharks for so many years and be like, oh, they're 500 still. What the fuck, man? And like it's December and you're like, they still got a chance, but like you never do. Like it's so hard for a team to just change and like start being good if they're not. Even sometimes when they get guys back from injury, but
yeah,
again, you're in such a division where it's like a good record isn't good enough in the Atlantic, which is nuts. Like,
yeah. So these next couple of teams, I will mention that again, this is not necessarily where I think these teams will finish in the standings, but it is a sense of like how I view their rosters in terms of a well-rounded nature. Because you might be expecting Ottawa or Detroit to be here next. Let's talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs. Again, I'm not saying that they are the fifth best team or, fifth 5 out of 8 in the Atlantic, but let's talk about this roster. And there's one thing that obviously stands out. First and foremost, their offense is pretty damn good. I don't have it in the one of the top 2 spots, but the Lions projected to be Bunting, Matthews, Marner. That should be great. Kerfoot, Tavares, who's going to be out for 3 weeks, as we learned today, and William Nylander. Bottom 6, Engvall, David Kampf, and Calle Jarnkrok. That's not bad. And in the fourth line of Wayne Simmons, Nick Abruzzese, I believe it would be, as a rookie, and Nick Aube-Kubel. Obviously, with Toronto, it's reliant upon the stars and the big money players. Still, did they get the right supporting cast around them this season? Maybe. Their defense, I honestly think, is arguably the best in the division in terms of well-rounded, nature, the depth of it. Riley Brody, Muzzin Hall, Giordano, and then the one guy you look at, it's like, is Jordy Ben. But if Jordy Ben's on the third pair, probably, working the PK, he's surrounded and insulated enough by good defensemen. No, I don't necessarily think Toronto has an elite defenseman, but enough insulation with good defensemen, I think they're okay. The bottom line is, in terms of, like I said, that well-rounded approach, it's the goaltending for the Leafs that I just simply cannot bank on. It's Matt Murray and Ilya Samsonov. And everybody knows that that's the big X factor for the season is what the hell do you get out of these 2 players?
Yeah, I don't like that fourth line either. I was looking at that, I'm like, man, you lose and there's no Jason Spezza to give him a kick in the ass anymore when they're giving up 4 goals in a period because they decided to let their foot off the gas in the second. Like, I think people underrate how much he brought to the room and just how much he brought to that team. He always seemed to be like an energy and not just like, he brings a lot to the intangibles. No, like he would fucking go out and score a goal and be like, wake up, and people would wake up. I saw that multiple times when I'd watch the Leafs, like in this one game where he was like the only one out there doing anything.
And no, I mean, what's always the most exciting part of the podcast for me is getting your thoughts on the Leafs, especially heading into a season. Like, based off of how I kind of constructed this outlook, is there any disagreement that, yep, the rest of the Leafs team is very solid, but what the hell is this goaltending going to be? Or is the attitude amongst Leaf fans a bit more optimistic now that you guys, have kind of gotten to see this team in action a little bit, at least in the preseason?
So I'm glad that like our defense it looks relatively proper. I feel like that's a perfect allocation for that team. Um, I'm still worried about goaltending a little bit too. I had the chance to actually talk to the new goaltending coach during a skate randomly because I had a practice facility. I had a game at the practice facility, and just I was able to talk to him after he had a skate before the kids are going to Traverse for that tournament. Seems like a nice guy. Uh, he's going to be working again with like, Matt Murray, Samsonov. Murray, I think he just had a lot of stuff on his plate and wasn't really just didn't really bounce back because I think he had a death in the family. I think it was his dad, and he just never really bounced back off of that. That stuff can rattle you. I mean, look what happened to Marc-Andre Fleury when his father passed away. He was in a slump for a while. Samsonov, I think he's really looking to prove himself as a goaltender. So it's a weird situation when you look at it because both goalies are compatible when they're in their peak, but Samsonov now gets a chance to finally prove that he's the guy. And this is basically going to be like them fighting back and forth through the entire season of who's going to get the first start, who's going to get this. Sort of kind of what they wanted to go with when they had Mrazek and they had Campbell was you basically play for either number one. And then injuries happen. Chugg came out of nowhere. He's up there. He did fairly well, honestly. In terms of offense, like Tavares is out for 3 weeks. The thing about Spezza is that he was the unofficial captain. From stuff that I've seen, like videos and everything, he was very on the ice captain, and I think he was a better fit as a captain than John Tavares was, because I don't see Tavares doing anything like with the team, maybe like behind the scenes in a locker room and everything, but on the ice he's just deadpan, quiet, not really seem like he's gonna like vibe people up. Like there was some stuff during the playoffs where Spets is going over the Tavares, being like, yeah, like just like talking to him, kind of like communicating and all that, and I don't know what to expect from this team. Again, this year, like I want to wait till the playoffs happen. I mean, they just had a record-setting year last year, but it was all for nothing. And now we basically revamped their goaltending core. Have a fourth line now, which like Sin said is questionable. And and as Sin disappears.
All right, so I think we covered Toronto pretty well. Endo Mills chipping in as always with his boys in blue. Let's talk about the team that we had in fourth here, that I had in fourth. I won't pass the buck on to you. Again, not that I believe they will finish in fourth, but in terms of the way the roster is constructed, the Florida Panthers. I have a feeling this will be a controversial one based off of how they finished last year, but let's take a look at this team. Offensively, I think it's kind of middle of the road. Top line for Hagee, Barkov, Reinhart, pretty goddamn good, obviously. Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Bennett, Calgary connection with Colin White as a presumed potential second line right wing. Third line is Lomberg, who's providing the grit, Anton Lundell and Patrick Hornqvist, who's a bit past it. And then Nick Cousins, Luotz-Derainen, and Rudolph Balcers. It just seemed kind of top heavy to me. Very similar to a Toronto. I'd say just not quite like, I don't know, like, who do you take? Barkov, Tkachuk, Reinhart, or Matthews, Marner, Nylander?
I take Matthews, Marner, Nylander. 100%.
Yeah, the biggest issue is that Anthony Duclair, who would certainly help bolster that top six, is out with no clear-cut timetable for his return right now. That's a huge loss for that offense. Defensively, I also think it's middle of the road without Mackenzie Weegar being there.
They got real shit defensively without Weegar.
Yeah, so Gustav Forsling, Aaron Ekblad. Good. Mark Stahl alongside Radko Gudas. And then I believe it's Gabriel Carlson and Brandon Montour, which Montour was better. You could argue like his performance looks worse because if you factor in like how he's done on Buffalo recently. But, prior to the trade, I'm not sold by that defense whatsoever.
And you got to hope Ekblad can stay healthy, which he's had some issues with in his career.
Oh, God forbid he gets hurt again. That defense looks fucking abysmal.
Oh, yeah. What are you going to have, Forsling and Gudas as your top pair? Gross.
And then there's the goaltending, which is still Bobrovsky and Spencer Knight. Now, it is worth noting Spencer Knight did just sign a new extension that kicks in next year, 3 years at $4.5 million. They will be able to afford it as they have $6.5 million in dead cap this season, thanks to Keith Yandel and Scott Darling. But that means they're going to be paying, I believe, both Bobrovsky and Knight combined will be $15 million in goaltending starting next year.
Yep.
Oof.
Yeah.
Like I don't want to jump the gun here and say they missed a bit of a window, but I don't know if I have as much confidence in this lineup to like take that next step forward and make a cup run like I did the lineup last year.
No, and I talked about this before when we kind of talked about the trade. I believe they overreacted to getting shit kicked in the playoffs. They did what every team does, except on an extreme level, is they brought back in the grit, but they brought back in the ultimate grit in a guy who can also, produce offense, who had a career year, but you traded two very important pieces. Like, again, fine, it's a straight up fine trade for me if it's Huberdeau for Tkachuk. Maybe throw a pick in there because the age difference, but throwing in Mackenzie Weegar as well is abysmal. Absolutely horrific thing for you to do as a franchise. And that's how I think they overreacted. They're so desperate to fill this perceived need because they got pushed, they got kicked out, they got swept in the second round. They freak out and they panic, and this is the result, and your team looks worse now because of it. Like, a lot worse.
Endo.
Yeah, so this kind of like, I hate talking about the Leafs again because everyone thinks they just Leafs so much, but this kind of reminds me of what everyone wants the Leafs to do, in a way, where they've been basically not getting out of the first round for the past 6, 7, 8, almost 20 years at this point, and they want them to make this big move and blow it up and do all that, and that's basically kind of what Florida did in the small point. I think what you said, Tougie, is right. They definitely missed a window. Now it's easier for them having Keith Yandel's contract off the books. And he was kind of sluggish anyway, and they could probably bring someone in to, fill up that role. But I don't think they're going to be as dominant as they were last season. They came out of the water, just took it for their own, and I don't know what to expect from them. It'll be, if they are the same way that they were last year, that's huge, but I don't see them having that same level of compete.
I'd be happy to be proven wrong because I don't actively root against the Florida Panthers.
Mm-mm.
I think it'd be a great story. I mean, especially too, granted, Arizona's taken a lot of that spotlight in terms of move the franchise. It was 2-3 seasons ago that you would still see discussions on Twitter and Reddit about moving the Florida Panthers once a week.
Yeah, they were the punching bag for having no one in the stands. I remember that very clearly. That was 5+ years ago. That was the thing to say.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm not saying they're going to finish fourth in this division, but what I am saying is I'm not really sold on this roster, and especially too you kind of live and die with the goaltending. Spencer Knight's still young. He's been good in what he's played, but then of course the big X factor is Bobrovsky making over $10 million. And you never know what you're going to get from Bobrovsky on a season-by-season basis.
Yeah.
We get to the top three, and again, I knew this would be controversial kind of once I saw what these rosters looked like. But in third, well-rounded approach, Ottawa, after the offseason that they've had. Now, their offensive depth, I have to be honest here, isn't necessarily great. And I think a lot of people are kind of pointing that out. The top six looks good. With Brady Tkachuk, Josh Norris, Drake Batherson, DeBrincat, Stützle, and Claude Giroux. That's pretty goddamn good.
That's so sick.
It is worth noting, too, that Alex Formenton would probably fit into this middle six. He is not currently signed. I believe he is one of the last couple of RFAs alongside the likes of Jason Robertson in Dallas. But right now, that bottom six, Tyler Mott, Shane Pinto, who's unproven, and Matthew Joseph, who's solid. Parker Kelly, Sharks legend Dylan Gambrell, and Austin Watson. That's a drop-off. That's a pretty sharp drop-off in terms of offensive depth. Their defense, Shabbat and Artem Zub. not bad. Nick Holden, Nikita Zaitsev, not bad. Eric Brandstrom, Travis Hamonic, not bad. But by default, that defense honestly looks a little bit better than it should, based off of kind of the lack of depth for other teams, especially when a team like Boston is missing two of their top defenders. Just kind of by default, they get bumped up a little bit. I feel like there's less question marks in that lineup necessarily, more of like, what you're going to get. And then where they kind of made up ground was their goaltending with Cam Talbot and Anton Forsberg. Neither are a star goalie, but more than likely you're going to get consistently solid goaltending all season long
from both of them.
And that's a pretty big deal.
That's kind of the new meta in the NHL. Like, it really is. That's what
like
most
you compare
teams are
them
looking for.
To Montreal, to Buffalo, to Toronto. I'm taking Ottawa's goaltending over anybody on those teams. No disrespect to Jake Allen, but yeah. So I think like Ottawa, like you factor in their improvements of DeBrincat and Giroux, and then kind of the shortcomings of some other teams, and on paper they look a little bit better. Now, am I willing to go out on a limb and say I guarantee the Ottawa Senators are making the playoffs? No, I'm not. But it's not out of the realm of possibility. I think all three of us would agree that the Ottawa Senators could make the postseason this year.
Yeah.
You just disagree.
Yeah. You're not wrong.
I love their top six. I think Ottawa had one of the best, if not the best, off seasons.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, the reason for the hype around the team right now, which again, they haven't had any optimism surrounding the team really for the past 5 years. The conference final run against the Penguins, and then, the Erik Karlsson trade. And since then, it's been a bit of a rough time. It is the most optimism they've had in a while. It might even set the stage for a new arena deal in downtown Ottawa. So things are looking up for them.
Yeah.
Things are also looking up for the team that I had in second here. This is the one that I'm not so sure about, to be honest, even more so than Ottawa. Kind of, makes it pretty obvious who number one is, but obviously they were going to be number one. At the second spot, the Detroit Red Wings.
You're brave.
Which I think might surprise, but let's talk about this team real quick. Their offense: Bertuzzi, Larkin, Raymond, Verana, Kopp, and David Perron, Kubalik, Suter, Zadina, Ernie, Rasmussen, and Sundqvist. With Robbie Fabry currently out hurt, he's projected to be injured at least up until the beginning of the new year. I love that offensive depth. Do they have like that true outrageous superstar? Maybe not. But I think that the additions of Perron and Kopp into that offense, Kubalik as well, paints a much, much prettier picture than what they've been dealing with before.
Yeah, and it's an Eisman team. I still feel like they should be switched with Toronto when it comes to the rankings. That being said, it's really hard to argue with the offseason. I feel like they had a really kind of quiet, really good offseason, at least compared to some of the other teams who like made more bigger splashes. They're just like, oh yeah, we'll take Kopp, we'll take Perron, sure, why not? I loved when they got I think that's Pius Suter, right? Yeah. I wanted the Sharks to go after him so bad. And the fact that Eisman went after him, I'm like, I fucking knew it. Like, anyone that Eisman goes after this point, I'm like, yeah, he's solid. What I saw, I'm right. Yeah, I must have been right about what I saw, because Eisman builds great teams. You can't really... Yeah, so I definitely think, again, Detroit, any other division, they could probably battle for a playoff spot, but in this one, they might get the wild card, but it's... Again, I could be wrong. I don't like their goaltending.
We'll get to that. It's
so inconsistent, despite how good we think those two are, because they've showed promise at certain times.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think both of them are unproven. And if Ottawa's like, hey, these are good because you're going to get consistent, solid numbers out of them, Detroit's the opposite of like, these guys could be good, but they've never really been consistent.
I think that's fair with Husso and Nedeljkovic.
Yeah.
Like that high end talent that they've shown in brief moments is there. But like you said, will they consistently hit that mark? And then defensively, It's better, but it's still not amazing. Sherrod Sider, Oli Mata, and Philip Ronick, Jordan Osterley, and Gustav Lindstrom because of the injuries to Mark Pissick and Jake Wallman. Like I said, I certainly, like, despite how these teams look, and it was just a basic way to kind of compare teams, yeah, I would still side with the idea of Florida and Toronto being better than Detroit. But I think it also shows in a sense that Detroit shouldn't be terrible.
Yep.
I don't know if any team in this division outside of Montreal has an excuse to necessarily be terrible. Even, Buffalo, I would be shocked if they're in contention for a playoff spot. But to me, that leaves 6 teams who should 100% be disappointed if they don't make the playoffs. I don't know if there's a disagreement there either, but Boston, Toronto, Florida, Ottawa, Detroit, and our number 1.
Yeah, no, I said what I needed to say about them. I'm opening the door for Endo here.
He always speaks up if he's got something to add.
I don't know about Detroit being that high. They've gotten better, but I don't think that they're there yet. In a way, I mean, with Fabry being out for till at least 2023, you have no real deadline when he's going to come back. Are you really going to see that depth step up and help them out? I mean, they have a good depth pool, I guess, but are they ready enough to actually put that extra step forward and get in there, or are they just kind of depth, like a body that they can just put in there?
Yeah. That's the thing about Fabry is that he's kind of always been injured, but then also Detroit's kind of always been in the bottom of the standings. So
right,
yeah.
The number 1, at least on paper, for the moment, I still have Tampa.
Yeah,
at least in terms of how I elected to kind of put this little deal together to directly compare these teams.
That's fair.
Offensively, Stamkos, Point, Kucherov. It's the best top line in the division, maybe in the league. Kaloran, Paul, Hagel. Cole Kopke, who would be a rookie with Vladislav Nemestikov, Ross Colton, and then Maroon, Belmar, and Corey Perry. The missing name is Anthony Cirelli, who is going to be out injured until December. With him, obviously, this offense looks even better. That is still an incredibly difficult to deal with offense in Tampa.
It is, because even though their depth, they might not, or their bottom 6, they might not be the most, we see how effective they are. We already know how effective their bottom 6 can be, because it's by and large, a lot of it's the same. Corey Perry is a wasp. Maroon somehow is always finding a way to do something in some way. Belmar, I've always kind of liked him. He's a pretty solid 4th line guy. Yeah, and again, they're proven. And so even Nick Paul on that second line, he'll hold his own. He had some big clutch moments in the playoffs. He would spark that team when, again, it seemed like they didn't want. He wasn't either. Yeah, was it the series clinching game against Toronto where he scored 2 goals and was just an absolute beast? Yeah, you can play top 6, I'm sure, for at least the time.
And he signed forever and ever, amen.
Yeah,
on a cheaper deal to have gotten that term. Their defense, Hedman and Calfoot, so Foot's a bit of a question mark. Sergachev and Chernak, which might be the best second pair in the entire league. And then Ian Cole with Phil Myers. So 3 stud defenders, and then a veteran in Cole, and 2 relatively unproven, still relatively young guys in Calfoot and Phil Myers to try to step up.
Don't they have, I'm blanking on the name now, but they signed that guy to a 3-year, almost a league minimum deal last season. He did the first year of that.
Zach Bogosian?
Thank you, yes.
Who was hurt at the moment.
There you go.
He can also fill in if need be.
I wasn't aware he was hurt.
Yeah, he is on IR temporarily.
He was pretty solid. He surprised me how solid he was.
Ooh, Bogosian?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's,
as of July 13th on Cap Friendly, was listed with a 5-month injury due to a shoulder. So he'll be back towards, the end of this year, if not into 2023.
All right.
And then their goaltending, which Tampa's goaltending, to me, it's the best. Because you have a decent backup and a veteran in Brian Elliott, and you have the best goaltender in the world right now, maybe, and Andrei Vasilevsky. I mean, Tampa's still an incredibly well-constructed team.
Yeah.
So, Tampa, they're making the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Despite the order that we talked about these teams. Detroit, bubble team.
Yeah, fair.
Ottawa, bubble team.
Fair.
Florida, more likely to make it, but not that far. Like, maybe.
Yeah.
They're not quite Tampa, and it would be unbelievable to see them miss the playoffs, but they're not quite bubble team status either. They're in the in-between.
Yeah, there's a few more question marks in the Atlantic this season, I would say. With certain teams getting better and then other teams kind of maybe regressing slightly, and maybe Toronto and Florida.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd still say it. I honestly can't even say a top 3 in the Atlantic. I would have to say
I
top
have 2.
I think it's
and Tampa.
Yes, Toronto, Tampa. They're making the playoffs.
Whatever.
Everything else, fuck.
Mhm.
It could, and that's kind of neat because it was the Atlantic. I think it's still going to be a really good division, but now like all the meat grinder, instead of happening near the top, is going to happen right in the middle, and that's going to make for some exciting hockey down the stretch.
Yeah,
Unless every team decides to tank for Connor Bedard. And you might see a lot of teams doing that. This might be one of the either best performing lower battles to get into the playoffs, or it might be just an entire shit show just because people are willing to tank for Bedard. And then you have Fantilli, and then you have Michkov, which Michkov's probably going to get over. They're going to grab his rights regardless because you don't want to pass up Michkov because of his talent level on it. Just insane talent.
Yeah, and we don't know in terms of the wild card split either. It's not a guarantee that 4 or 5 Atlantic teams make it.
Yeah,
not even close.
Very true.
So a lot of intriguing that division, and we'll talk about our Western division for this podcast, which is the Pacific. Again, same kind of thing, and we could talk about what order we think teams might actually finish in. But based off of how I set this up, team number 8 in the Pacific Division, the Anaheim Ducks. And I don't know how much disagreement there will be. I feel like it's one of these bottom 2 teams I think you could see finishing last in the Pacific, but I have Anaheim there, at least with the way this was set up.
I would have switched them.
Well, we'll talk about that. But Anaheim's offense, way too many question marks. Henrique, Zegras, Terry, pretty good. Comtois, Strome, Vetrano, almost be better suited as a third line instead of a second line. Max Jones, who's coming off of a pretty big injury. Mason McTavish, who fucking looked unbeatable at the World Juniors, but it's an entirely different story at the NHL level. Yeah. He'll have Silverberg on his right, who's still pretty solid. And then the fourth line of Benoit Olivier Giroux, Isaac Lundstrom, and Derek Grant, which is fine.
Super young.
Yeah, it's very young, and there's no truly slam dunk, this guy is elite right now player.
Zegras. Excuse me. Cover boy Zegras, okay?
Excuse me, he can Michigan.
Yeah. What do you mean your name's? What do you mean you're Evgeny? Sorry, I just laughed.
What do you mean it's Evgeny Svechnikov?
He can't fucking Michigan. How are we gonna deal with that kid in Anaheim? Oh fuck.
The Ducks defense: Fowler, Klingberg, Vakanainen, Shattenkirk, Kulikov, Drysdale. It's fine. I mean, Klingberg obviously on the 1-year deal. Kulikov, who they got for dirt cheap from Minnesota. Fowler's still pretty damn good, if not underrated. Shattenkirk solid, but then Vakanainen, young. Drysdale, young. So it's fine. It's not the worst defense core in that division. And then the goaltending: John Gibson and Anthony Stolarz.
Elite Gibson.
When they are on their game, they can be one of the better tandems in this division. Yeah. I am not personally sold, based off of everything I've seen from an analytical perspective. I am not sold on John Gibson's numbers are down because of everything else except for John Gibson. I'm not sold on that. EA clearly disagrees. He's still going to be a 90 in NHL 23, but I disagree with that. I think we've seen examples of bad teams, bad defenses, bad coaching, still good goaltending performances and good goaltending numbers.
Fair.
If John Gibson's truly that good, why can't he overcome that?
Because he unfortunately did it for too long, and now his back's given out from carrying those teams, and now he just can't do it anymore. But I think he's lost a step. I still think he's a solid goaltender, but he's definitely not what he was. Maybe you could see it. Maybe some of that youth is going to energize him again, and maybe the fast-paced play that hopefully Anaheim will begin to insert back into their game, because they damn well should, with all those young legs on that team, will kind of give him that energy again, and I'd like to see that. Because I've always liked Gibby. I got that autographed picture of him.
Yeah, same here. Endo.
Yeah. Just Gibson itself. It's really funny to see how everyone thought that, Freddie Anderson coming from Anaheim went to Toronto. They went, oh, Toronto ruined him because of that style of play. I think the postseasons for Toronto and for Anaheim were very comparable. Granted, Anaheim had more success. I think they got out of the round. They got out of the first round at least once, I believe. I can't remember. But I feel like both of those goalies had very similar styles, in which they basically had to carry both teams, and they did it until they broke. And then when they broke, all hell broke loose because you have nothing to fall back on. I think John Gibson can do well, but like you said, I don't think he's gonna be the same he was before. That Anaheim team is gonna be at the bottom, and I see them gunning for either a goaltender in this draft or looking for obviously Bedard for the bottom.
Yeah. Shit, I would go for Bedard if I was them. I mean, I agree with them being at the bottom, although I want the next team to be at the bottom, although I know they won't. They're going to just hang around.
That team is the San Jose Sharks, whose offense I had rated slightly above Anaheim's. Meyer, Hurdle, Barabanov, Lindblom, Couture, LeBanc as a second line.
Second liner Lindblom, baby. Oh my God. God, looking at this, it's horrible.
Gregor, Bonino, Kunin, Nieto, Sturm, and Lawrence.
That's Long Beach native Matt Nieto.
That team looks bad.
Very bad. You know what that needs? It needs a nice William Eklund and a nice...
I don't play William Eklund at the NHL level this year.
I don't either. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
I'd play him AHL. Fuck, burn a year out of his entry, whatever. Play him with... Why do I always blank on this kid's name every time?
Bordela.
Yes, I love the guy, and I always want to say Boudreaux. I'm like, that's not right. Anyway, yes, Bordeleau, dude, Eklund and Bordeleau. God, how much better is that second line gonna look with them on it? Anyway, but yeah,
what drags down the Sharks is this defense core. Top pair projected: Radim Shimmick and Erik Karlsson. Mario Ferraro with Marc-Edouard Vlasic.
Keeping the dream alive, baby.
And Marcus Nudivara with Matt Benning, who's solid.
Well, I like Matt Benning. God, I forgot. I know the trade happened, but it's still a shock not to see Burns there with Ferraro or Burns with Shimmick. I'm excited to see what Ferraro's gonna do. How's he gonna step out without how's he gonna step up both in two presences? It's kind of on the ice and in the locker room. He's always kind of been a sort of a natural leader. He was, had that voice, but like being Burns' partner, I kind of feel like Burns would have taken the lead in a lot more situations like that, both in the locker room and on the ice. So I'm kind of excited to see what Ferraro's going to do. He's very, very competitive. Analytically, there is some question marks, but heart, he's all there. And I do like him. We'll see.
Goaltending wise, it's been a carousel, but it comes down to James Reimer and Capo Kakkonen.
Mm-hmm.
Depending on what numbers you look at, James Reimer is the most underrated goaltender in the league at this stage.
He 100% is, and we better get a first for him at the deadline.
Like, he, I think hasn't escaped 9 years ago. Like, it's just his legacy has become, right or not, Oh, he's the goal. He was the goalie for the Leafs when they blew it to the Bruins in 2013.
That's
And that is not
completely
fair
unfair.
or indicative of how well he's played since.
No, and I wonder why certain players get these things attached to them, whereas other ones, even though they're in a similar situation or something, they never seem to ever get blamed for anything, and it's weird. I mean, we've seen that quite a bit for like different sort of players. I mean, like take for example, some big physical defenseman who's absolutely awful, but they never
Eric
seem to be the
Goodbranson.
one. Yeah, Erica Branson, Ristolainen. They never seem to be blamed for anything. They always get these big contracts, and they're always needed. And like then you have someone like Reimer, who's just one of the coolest human beings on the planet, and has just been extremely underrated. He's an incredible goaltender. He was facing like 40 shots a night for the Sharks and allowing 2 goals, like trying this damnedest for the Sharks, and they're just like, oh yeah, we can't score. Look at this first line. Look at this first line. What is this?
So yeah, San Jose I could see being worse than Anaheim this season. I do trust this, like I said, the goaltending is fairly comparable, you could say. The defense definitely goes to Anaheim, but I think the offense goes to San Jose. So it just kind of depends on what young players make the lineup for each team and how they end up performing.
And Kakkonen, while improvement, I really like some of what I saw from him down the stretch on that shitty-ass Sharks team. I really think, and what he did for Minnesota before he got to the Sharks, too. Again, still unproven, but moments there, like you saw from Nedeljkovic, or however the hell you say his name. Like, solid moments where he looks good.
I like Nedeljkovic as opposed to Nedeljkovic personally.
I don't know. I used to say like Nedeljkovic, and then like I just Ned. So easy.
Shout out to Mikhail Sergachev. That was one of my favorites. Back in the day when he was first getting to the league.
Yeah.
Mikhail Sergachev. So I think, there won't be any disagreement when we talk about the top teams. These 2 teams should be the bottom 2 in the Pacific Division. And if they're not, it's a failure on the other 6. That they were somehow worse than these 2.
Cruel but understandable.
First, perhaps a little controversial one. Let's talk about Vancouver next.
Hey,
the
kids,
offense
I'm a Vancouver.
Oh, Vancouver. Their offense: Pearson, Miller, Garland, pulled Colson, Horvat, and potentially Curtis Lazar. Third line: Kuzmenko, Pedersen, Mikheyev, and then Dickinson, Joshua, Höglander.
What's Pedersen doing on the third line?
Now again, blame cap friendly. But that's what they have at the moment in the aftermath of Brock Besser's injury. He's going to miss the first month of the season.
Put him on the wing. Shit.
I was going to say, like, on one hand, I don't hate the idea of, Kuzmenko's coming over from the KHL. Mikheyev obviously comes in from the Leafs. And then you have Pedersen between them. If that actually works out, that is a fucking third line that most teams wouldn't be able to handle.
Very true.
But at the same time, it's just, the optics of Elias Pettersson being on the third line, if that is indeed what they go with, is scary.
I would get it if Horvat had better support in his wingers on the second, but that's the third line. Like, in my opinion, like if you're going to have Horvat second line, you better have 2 talented offensive wingers, because Horvat, while good offensively, is always, in my mind, more of a defensive-minded center.
Yeah. As of 2 hours ago, Ilya Mikheyev is week to week with lower body injury. So he might be ready. Yeah. He took a tumble. He got hit during the preseason game with the Flames. And he landed on his wrist. So
what? She tripped, fell, landed on his wrist? Anyway, sorry.
Lower body. It looked like he landed on his wrist, but it was saying lower body injury.
Could have landed on his wrist.
So that's a bit scary.
Yeah.
Then you get to their defense. Top pair projected to be Oliver Ekman-Larsson and Tyler Myers. Second pair, Quinn Hughes playing with Luke Shen. And Travis Dermott with Tucker Pullman. It's not abysmal.
Tucker.
But could I be excited about that as a Canucks fan? I don't know. I feel like I'd be trying to fool myself a little bit,
Yeah,
And then
that's not good.
Yeah. And then their goaltending is Thatcher Demko, who's obviously amazing, but their backup is Spencer Martin, who is unproven. He was very solid in a very limited sample size with them last season, but that would scare me too as a Canucks fan, because the idea if Spencer Martin doesn't work out, you're going to end up playing Thatcher Demko 60 fucking games in the regular
That's what I was
season.
just gonna say. He's the new Gibson, and I'm scared for his future because, like, we know he's kick ass right now, man. But how many years can he do this? And Vancouver's been making some very interesting moves that are, to me, are lateral or regressive moves to their roster. I have no idea what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because the conversation a few years ago, especially in the NBA, was the concept of load management and just how much do you play star players in the regular season. And the conversation was like, oh, how long until that's really a big time conversation in the NHL? It's like the fucking spaceman meme. It always has been. It's just been so focused on goaltenders
Yeah.
and how often they play, now more so than ever. Vancouver is a team that I think absolutely would view this season as a failure if they don't make the playoffs, especially after re-signing JT Miller. But can I list them as like one of the slam dunk teams to make the playoffs out of the Pacific? No, I can't. And that kind of brings us to our next team, the Seattle Kraken, who are in a pretty similar spot, I would say. Last year, in this little formula setup, I might have had Seattle as the best looking team on paper in this division. That did not age very well.
No, it aged so poorly. Like right when the season started, it was just like, fuck Tougie.
Immediately.
Yes. Like, I watched their first game. I was like, oh, they're not bad. Oh God. Oh, what do you?
Oh no.
Oh, honey. Oh, jeez.
Oh, Lord, yeah. Can't look away. Oh, look away. Oh, I can't see.
Their offense this year. First line right now is projected to be Ryan Donato, Matty Beniers, and Oliver Bjorkstrand. Donato, who they let go of and then brought back. Beniers, who obviously former second overall pick.
You know why? Because they can save him. All right, they can.
We call that in the business a catch and release.
The never-ending Ryan Donato reclamation project.
Yeah, he's the new Galchenyuk, man.
They did add Bjorkstrand from Columbus for fucking nothing, which is hilarious. Like every team should be jealous of how little they had to pay to end up getting Bjorkstrand. Means their second line is Jared McCann, Yanni Gourde, Jordan Eberle, which is awesome. Yeah. Their third line, Schwartz, Wenberg, Burakovsky. Like, fuck's sake. Like, if it does work having Donato and Beniers on the top line, even their fourth line is Tanev, Geeky, and Donskoy. I love that offensive core if the risk of, like, playing Donato and Beniers in a higher role works out for them, because they could roll a lot of really good lines.
They could. No Shane Wright, though. Bust.
We'll see if he makes it.
Yeah, no. I do. I really like that middle six a lot, at least what it is on paper. Again, putting Beniers, Donato, and Bjorkstrand is risky. I think eventually the first one out is going to be Donato, because you want to try to put Beniers and Bjorkstrand, because we know Beniers is obviously, but he's obviously going to be, have some solid offensive talent, but he was also touted as kind of, a pretty decent two-way guy. Mm-hmm. So that'll be interesting to see with a Bjorkstrand and how he'll develop that going up against other teams, often 1 or 2 Cs matchup wise, or going up against a third liner who's just going to be, try his best to take away the puck from your stick. How's he going to handle that situation? That's a big role.
Last year, their defense was what really stood out to me. This year, I'd argue they probably have like the second worst defense core on paper in this division. Top pair, Vince Dunn and Adam Larson, Jamie Alexiak and Justin Schultz, Carson Soucy and Will Borgen.
Might as well be Nick Schultz.
It might as well be. Bring him back after all these years.
Justin.
Their goaltending on paper is still strong, but holy fuck, did that not mean a goddamn thing last year, Grubauer and Drieger? Yeah, I, again, think for Seattle, do they have a team that could potentially push for a wild card spot? Yes. But man, despite how cool that offense looks like, looks like it could be, and how good it looks like it could be, that defense and that goaltending scares the crap out of me.
Yeah.
So while on paper, through this little formula here, we talked about them after Vancouver, I would certainly have Vancouver with higher aspirations than Seattle.
Yeah, possibly, but hey, you never know. Maybe you get it right this year. Maybe now that their defense is shit, they're gonna lock it down, and that offense is gonna do it. It's all right, Tougie.
Exactly.
We're all wrong occasionally.
Every once in a while.
You just have to eat the most crow.
All of it, literally all of it. The fourth team, the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yes.
Their offense, not elite, but not bad. Riley Smith, Jack Eichel, and Phil Kessel. Phil Kessel Reclamation Project. Marchessault, Stevenson, Stone, Howden, Carlson, Amadio, Carrier, Waugh, and Colasar. Of course, Nolan Patrick out for the season. Not bad, but Jesus Christ, the fact Pacioretty's not here anymore, and Dadonov's not here anymore, and this guy, and this guy, and this guy. It's absurd how much roster turnover they've had, obviously. Their defense, though, is kind of what saves them for me. Martinez, Pietrangelo, McNabb, Theodore, Hutton, Whitecloud. I really fucking like that defense on paper. Those are 6 really, really strong players. But their goaltending is the big question mark. Aiden Hill and Logan Thompson. Brossois out indefinitely still, and Robin Lehner is confirmed out for the season. Where would they be if those 2 guys were healthy? Who's to say? But Aiden Hill has shown flashes at the NHL level, and Logan Thompson tried his damnedest to will that team into the postseason last year. Fell just short. I think Vegas again will have the expectations of playoffs, or it's a disappointment. I just don't know if they make it.
I hope they don't.
Flat out.
I want them to continue to suffer for how they think that hockey works and how they have tried to build a team.
And their social media presence.
That
alone.
That
alone.
Good Lord. They just keep getting more cringe.
You know what it is? It's like your weird fucking uncle who is completely out of touch, and he uses his phone for what? Shut up. So it's you know what? For the visual watchers right now, it's your uncle who uses his one index finger to use his phone, and he zooms in on every single picture. Think of that person
right now.
Yeah, think of that person, but if they were a social media team for a National Hockey League team. Or trying too hard. It's they're trying too hard to relate to people. It's wow, look at this. The Kobe connection. It's called the Mamba Mentality. It's called the Mamba Mentality. Fuck you.
It's okay. No, see, because they both had numbers of Kobe. One's was, only one of them was the rapist number. So.
Love that joke. God damn it. It's the best way I can think to bring Endo's analogy home is it's the Steve Buscemi "How do you do, fellow kids" of social media management with the Vegas Golden Knights.
It is, and they've just doubled down on it. When it started, it was kind of neat, but it was a different. They fired that guy.
I think they fired 3 different people for that role already.
But they're probably hey, you're not being I don't know why they keep. Yeah, why they just keep doubling down on it. I'm just it's very weird. But hey, who knows?
To be honest. So Vegas will, again, kind of
it gets some engagements, and if that's all they care about, they're running their fucking Twitter account the same way they run their team, poorly.
All attention's good attention.
Yeah.
The old saying there. Third, let's talk about the LA Kings. And again, one that might be a bit debated, discussed. Offense, Kempe, Kopitar, Fiala, Moore, Dano, Arvidsson. I follow Byfield, Kaliev, Grundstrom, Lizotte, Lemieux. A lot of it kind of hinges upon the success of the younger guys like Byfield and Kaliev, and if Trevor Moore can keep performing well. But man, I'm I'm a fan. I'm a fan. I mean, you add Kevin Fiala to this team. I don't think you can complain too much about that offense. It's not a sure thing, though.
No. A lot of question marks, but they're in a division where there's a lot of question marks all over the place, except, well, honestly, there's no team in this specific division that doesn't have a bunch of fucking question marks.
True.
Yeah.
Like in the Atlantic, yeah, there's a couple teams that really don't have question marks, but this Pacific division is just one big question mark. So LA's got a great chance to come out, make the playoffs, and I hope they kick Vegas out in the process. Go get them, LA. Look at me cheering for you fuckers.
The defense. I love how all of California has been united in their hatred of Vegas.
Oh, it's straight up. Like it used to, they used to be the fiercest of rivalries between Anaheim, LA, and the Sharks, just like a trifecta of hatred and vitriol. And then Vegas comes into the picture, and we all just turn and just like, it's, yeah.
Fuck these guys.
Yeah, who the fuck are these guys? It's like that weird sibling thing where you're all beating the shit out of each other, but if someone else comes in from outside and like starts fucking with you, you all turn on him and beat the fuck out of him. Like,
bro. Yeah, I've always wanted to experience that. I just have with my cousin.
Getting your shit beat up and you come to California, man. I'll fuck that ass up. What up?
That's not what I meant. I meant like, as my cousin's like, I'll get personal. My family, like I'm an only child,
Bite
right?
the
So I don't
curb,
have any
bitch.
siblings. Thanks, Sin. So like anytime that I had like that sibling kind of like relationship with my cousins, and so like they'd always beat the crap out of each other, right? And then the minute I try to do that, they start beating the crap out of me instead. So it's like, damn,
That's how it works.
y'all are rude.
The LA defense, Mikey Anderson, Drew Doughty, Alex Edler, Matt Roy, Sean Walker,
Yeah.
Sean Dursey. Solid. Again, like you don't have that like truly elite defender anymore. Sorry,
No.
Crash Andrews about Drew Doughty, but it's
True.
still very, very good, very well rounded.
Yeah.
Like there's not an obvious weak link.
Drew Doughty has never been top 10. And now that we got that out of the way, I said his name. Anyway, that's I won't even. That's a meme on my channel. It doesn't exist here anyway. Yes, they're there. I think Quick and Peterson can, with that defensive core. I think they'll be able to scrape by some wins even when some of their unproven forwards aren't able to get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, that goaltending, like, on paper, I have it as one of the more solid options just because I think both, when they're on their game, have proven to be very, very solid. Whether or not you're going to get both on their game is the big question mark.
Yeah.
But Jonathan Quick now, even in his advanced age, is still a very, very solid goalie.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
you look at something like this, and it's why we say on paper. And on paper really kind of means, like, if all things go well for this team, the Kings have a legitimate shot at the playoffs, certainly.
Absolutely.
There are two teams, though, that I have as slam dunks to make the playoffs out of the Pacific.
Yeah.
And it's both Albertan teams. We'll talk about Calgary first, though. Top line, Huberdeau, Lindholm, Toffoli. Again, Jonathan Huberdeau, the all-time leading scorer in Florida Panthers history. Yes, you lose Tkachuk, but you add somebody like that. Pretty damn good.
Yep.
Second line, Mangiapane, Nazem Kadri, Blake Coleman.
Sick.
That team is scary. That top six. Jesus.
The bottom six is concerning until who you remember the coaches. You got Dubé, Backlund, and Trevor Lewis, Lucic, Kevin Rooney, and Brett Ritchie. On paper, that bottom six is atrocious. But who was the coach? Daryl Sutter. Your defensive, physical grit grinders, like
He's got a system for that.
yeah. So they aren't as scary as they would be to look at if they were on a different team. I think that's fair to say. You get to this defense, and I have this defense as the best defense on paper in the Pacific Division. Hannafin and Anderson, Uyghur and Tanev, and then Sheelington and Zadorov. On paper, that defense is fucking awesome. The way the Calgary Flames have rebounded from how bad it looked like this offseason would be to where they are now is astonishing.
Yeah.
And then in goal, you have Jake Markstrom and Dan Vladar behind him. Vladar, of course, is still a little bit unproven. Hence why goalie-wise, I'm a little bit concerned about them. But no, Calgary has rebounded from like, oh shit, you might as well tear it down, to like, if you miss the playoffs, that's a disappointing season for this roster. And it's the same thing, as I know. I know sometimes I set you guys up and you just left with nothing but like, yeah, and that's fair.
There's nothing you ain't wrong.
I take the silence as a positive sign, you know? The Edmonton Oilers, though, on paper are the best team in this division. They are the team with the highest aspirations. They are the team where it's not just, oh, if we miss the playoffs, it's disappointing. If you're not competing for the cup, it's disappointing. Offensively, it's obviously the best offense in this division. Kane, McDavid, Yamamoto, Hyman, Draisaitl, Puljujarvi, McLeod, Nugent Hopkins, Holloway, Janmark, Ryan, Fogle. It's pretty damn complete, depending on what you get from the likes of McLeod and Holloway, who are still younger and looking to take that next step.
Yeah.
Their defense leaves a bit to be desired. You know, Nurse, Bouchard, pretty goddamn good. They'll put up a lot of points. Kulak and Barry. Brett Kulak's that like prototypical defensive defenseman who will allow Tyson Barrie to maybe do what he used to do for the likes of Colorado. And then Philip Broberg as a younger defenseman with Cody Ceci, not that bad. Their goaltending, Jack Campbell and Stuart Skinner. Skinner's a bit unproven.
Franchise backup.
I mean, this team,
he's great.
It's a great fucking team on paper, man. Like, it really is.
They're going to make the playoffs. They're 100% making the playoffs. We all know that. Like, there's no real risk for them anymore in the Pacific to, well, I don't want to put anything past them, but McDavid and Draisaitl will drag that team kicking and screaming into the playoffs in this division.
At the very least.
They did.
Yeah.
They did.
And it's at this point, it's just a matter of what they do when they get there.
Mm-hmm.
I like Campbell. I really do like Campbell again. And they're still lacking some of that depth, but their top 6, and with Nuge centering, the top 9 by extension of that, is still going to be solid.
Yeah.
And
I mean, yeah, if your center depth is McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins, like,
you're so good. Yeah.
And
I think one of the big things too is Jack Campbell's coming from a defensive team with the Leafs, which was a little bit better than what Edmonton has going for them right. So I'm surprised. I can't wait to see how this plays out for him, where he's not going to have that same support as he did. I think arguably the past year, that like defensive core has been the best it's been with the Leafs in, I'm going to say, decades. Like, it's always been a big issue with the Leafs when they had their stuff over there. Whatever, we're going to stop talking about it. But just McDavid, Draisaitl, they're just going to carry this team again. They're going to see, I want to see who's going to end up playing with them on different wings and all that, because Evander Kane's on there, he's a mainstay on that line with McDavid. I wonder if there's going to be any other like people stepping up this year in case like Warren Fogley doesn't do well, or Dylan Holloway doesn't, be Dylan Holloway. I wonder if they have anyone in the depth in their system that's going to like bounce back up for them for offense, because they can outscore any team, and that's what they've basically been doing. And now that you have a goalie that's relatively good, I don't know what you're going to do. No offense to Mike Smith and Koskinen, but yeah, I'm excited to see what this team does, because I know they're going to outscore everybody, but if they can keep the puck out of their end, they're fine.
So in this division, we were both, or all, kind of in agreement. Both Calgary and Edmonton, playoffs bare minimum. Like, that's your expectation, and that, like, anything shy of that would be a disaster. LA, I think it'd be disappointing for them to not make the playoffs. I could see a world where they don't, but I think it'd be very disappointing if they didn't make it.
Oh, absolutely.
Vegas, certainly. I mean, it would be a disaster for them to not make it. They should. And then, Vancouver, I think you put in that LA category of you certainly got your eyes on the playoffs. It'd be disappointing to not make it.
I hope Seattle does.
So, see, like, I think our ranking here can be Edmonton, Calgary in tier A.
Yes.
Tier B, tier 2, whatever, is LA, Vegas, Vancouver as like, you should make the playoffs. It's disappointing if you don't, but we can see a reality in which you don't.
Yeah.
Third tier is Seattle. They're kind of in between that, and then the fourth tier of Anaheim and San Jose of like, you're fucked.
Yeah, we're that stupid Hydra head.
Yeah. Is that a fair way to rank it? Those 4 different tiers? You think that's accurate?
I think so, yeah. And Seattle being in one in their own, I think is very fair because they're kind of different than every other team in here. Being that they're still new and stuff, obviously. But they have, like, the capability, the talent level. It's just, they seemed so poorly coached last season. Like, with what they were on paper, we were so surprised to watch them look fucking clueless out there, especially defensively. And that's exactly what they did often, is look fucking clueless.
Yeah, I don't think any of us expected them to be as bad as they were.
Yeah, and I hope they're not, because man, if the Sharks suck, I want Bedard. I want a first overall pick at some point in my life. Why not now? It's my money. I need it now.
It's my money and I want it now.
I have my tanking and I want to tank now.
Call Sinski Wentworth.
Yeah.
877 tank now.
Shark Tank and shit too.
Cause it's the Shark Tank. Yeah. With that, everybody, I think that does it for this extended edition of the Tougies Take podcast. We'll be back next week to talk about the Metro and Central divisions as well. Get a hold of us. Let us know what you thought as well of our takes. Were we off the mark? Am I going to be completely wrong about Seattle for the second year in a row? Yes, I am. More than likely. I think they're going to live to fucking make my life miserable at this stage. And how right is Sin that the Vegas Golden Knights can suck it? Let him know. Let him hear it. Speaking of which, Sim, what do you got going on the lovely YouTubes?
Yeah, just wrapping up the Draft to Glory still, wrapping up the Total War Warhammer series. Don't know what I'm going to do between now and when NHL 23 comes out. Maybe do another Civilization series. Who the hell knows? But yeah, just doing my thing, and playing a lot of Warhammer tabletop too, which brings me a lot of joy. Having buddies come over, and actually my cousin-in-law come over. It's been great.
Warhammer, a real family affair.
Yeah.
I know. What do you got going on, Budsky?
A lot of FIFA. Actually, it might be starting on my first stream for FIFA this week. Not sure when it's going to be exactly. I've been trying to troubleshoot the PC version of the game, because if anyone here is looking to pick up FIFA 23 and you have it on PC, because they added hypermotion, or as I call it, hypertension. The game boots up at 5K resolution for no reason at all, and I'm super confused as to why. So I went to boot the game up, and it just booted 5K resolution. I'm like, what is going on? Fix that, and everything's running fine. Catch me twitch.tv/NoMills. Might be going to YouTube and do stuff over there as well. What's in?
Nothing. I just love how every time you do your plugs, there's also a mini story inside of every plug about something that goes on with what you're plugging. I love it.
Yeah. We'll be playing a lot of FIFA with the boys.
And let me tell you about the PC version and its resolution as you boot up the game.
Yeah, well, I was booting it up, and it just my PC started chugging during the menu. I was like, "What's going on here?" And I hit the thing.
Was it chewing, or was it just?
It's metal as fuck. That's why it's chugging.
Yeah.
My PC has the sickest riffs.
Has the best riffs.
Oh shit.
Oh, fucking hell. Thank you for listening to the show, everybody. Code Tougie Manscaped. We'll see you next week. Chugga chugga. Chugga chugga.
Choo choo.
Giggity goo.
Go listen to the new Electric Callboy song. Oh god, which one is I can't remember the name. Fuck. Techno Train. In which case, and Sin's gonna have to listen to this too. I want like a live reaction from you.
What the hell is Techno
In
Train?
which they have a chugging riff, but the harsh vocalist like chews along with the chugging.
What?
It's called Techno Train, Electric Callboy. Okay,
It is.
I'm gonna pee real quick and then I'll do it.
Oh, it's the best. We'll see you next week, everybody. I didn't end the show yet. Bye.
Oh, what the fuck?